of the Arab American Institute. Omar, thanks for being with us. It's been, of course, just over 24 hours since Israel launched its attack on Iran, and now we've seen retaliatory strikes by Iran on Tel Aviv, occupied East Jerusalem, and further strikes by Israel on Iran tonight. How concerned are you by the direction this is heading?
This is an extremely dangerous situation, arguably one of the most dangerous moments for the entire region. I mean, Israel is behaving like a rogue state. It is just acting in a way that is unbelievably reckless. Just think of the context leading up to this moment. Israel is an apartheid regime. It is illegally occupying Palestine for literally decades illegally. It's carrying out a genocide in Gaza for the better part of 2 years now. It's occupying now neighboring Lebanon and neighboring Syria, expanding its territory in Syria, and now taking on its most significant regional rival by attacking military officials, the country's top leaders, in their residential buildings in the country's capital city. It is really difficult to put into words how dangerous the situation is. And if this day one of this exchange includes attacks on residential areas in Tehran and in Tel Aviv, then it's hard to know what the path of escalation is from here. You would think that this would be the peak of it. So it's an extremely dire and dangerous situation that we're in.
And we have seen tonight the UN chief urging de-escalation from both sides. But given Israel chose war over diplomacy and unleashing a wave of attacks early Friday, how do you see this getting resolved?
Yeah, there is no path for de-escalation in the short term. We have to see where the dust is going to settle. What is happening right now in, Trump's brain, apparently, he sees this as a negotiations attempt at leverage, that he's going to squeeze Israel militarily in order to get bigger concessions from them when they sit down to have the nuclear talks. But there aren't going to be any nuclear talks under these current conditions. The only path towards de-escalation is to let this conflict play out and basically see which way it is trending. If it is trending against Iran, I think Israel is going to try to take this all the way in an attempt to either achieve a surrender from Iran or regime change. But if it starts trending in the opposite direction against Israel, this is where we have this big gamble of whether the U.S. is going to get involved directly to join this confrontation on the side of Israel against Iran, or whether the U.S. is going to start looking for a potential ceasefire and a path towards de-escalation. Either way, this is not going to end quickly, and it's not going to end before a lot of damage is done. That's for sure.
And Omar, have you been surprised by the strength and magnitude of Iran's attacks on Israel? And how long do you think Iran is able to sustain this scale of assault?
I don't think anything about this was surprising. The question was primarily about how big a hit Iran took in those opening hours, because the playbook that Israel used is very similar to the one they used against Hezbollah in Lebanon. Hezbollah had accumulated significant military assets to fight a war with Israel, but in carrying out simultaneous assassinations of their entire top military leadership, they were able to really turn the tide in that conflict very, very quickly. But Iran, of course, is a much, much bigger country. It's not tiny Hezbollah and tiny Lebanon. So it remains an open question. It is difficult to know from the outside what the extent of the damage of that initial clandestine operation that they carried out, taking out significant members of Iran's military leadership, significant assets and ballistic missiles. So we'll have to see whether Iran has very significant reserves, which is certainly possible, that are well beyond the reach of Israel. And it might actually be a very long time before we see anybody feeling the pressure really of running out of any kind of ammunition. So I worry that we are definitely on the path towards very, very significant escalation in the next few days.
And as our reporter has been saying, the same as you, that this could be continuing for days. But what kind of intervention from the US would be required here to halt things?
If rational minds ruled Washington, the obvious thing to do here is to intervene to restrain Israel, to force them to end the insane genocide they've been carrying out in Gaza for nearly 2 years, and to say that enough is enough. You can't behave like a rogue regime that behaves however you want. Again, we're looking at a nuclear-armed regime in Israel saying that the reason they're waging war against Iran, which does not have nuclear weapons, on the basis of a so-called nuclear threat. I mean, just the level of hypocrisy and double standard and arrogance that Israel brings to the table, behaving like it's a country that is above the rules and above the law and gets to do whatever it wants. That is a dynamic that has to come to an end in the region if we're going to see long-lasting peace and stability. And it really is on the United States as the only country that has significant leverage over Israel to intervene and put an end to the way that Israel is behaving in the region.
Omar Baddar, member of the National Policy Council of the Arab American Institute, thank you so much for your time here with us.
Thank you.